For decades, the V8 engine was the sound of performance. That deep rumble when you started the car. That feeling when you pressed the gas and the whole car seemed to come alive. For a lot of car enthusiasts, a V8 isn't just an engine. It's part of what makes a car a car. But here's the strange part. Some of the world's biggest automakers are slowly moving away from it. V8s are getting harder to find. Smaller engines are becoming more common, and electric motors are taking their place. So, what happened? Why is one of the most iconic engines ever made slowly disappearing? To understand that, we have to go back a little. The V8 became especially important in America because it offered something drivers loved: power. You could have a relatively practical car, put a V8 under the hood, and suddenly it had serious performance. That idea became a huge part of American car culture. Muscle cars, sports cars, trucks, luxury cars. For decades, the V8 was everywhere, and it wasn't just about horsepower. There was something emotional about it. The sound, the vibration, the way the engine delivered power. You didn't just drive a V8, you could feel it. But eventually, the automotive world changed. Cars became more advanced. Fuel economy became more important, and governments around the world introduced increasingly strict emissions and efficiency requirements. That created a problem for large engines. A V8 makes serious power, but it also burns more fuel. More cylinders meant more moving parts, more weight, and more complexity compared with a smaller engine. And when you multiply that across millions of cars, the difference in fuel consumption becomes enormous. And that's where smaller engines started to make a lot more sense. Then came turbocharging. Instead of adding more cylinders, engineers found a smarter way to get more power from less. That meant smaller engines could still deliver the kind of performance people expected from much bigger ones. But turbocharging came with its own challenges: more heat, more pressure, and more complicated systems. And for automakers, squeezing more power from smaller engines meant more engineering, testing, and cost. And that raised an interesting question. If smaller engines could do the job, what was the point of keeping the V8? The answer was simple. The V8 offered something numbers couldn't fully explain: character. You could hear it. You could feel it. And for enthusiasts, that experience mattered. That's why V8s didn't disappear overnight. They simply became harder to justify. Then fuel economy standards got tougher, and automakers had even more reason to look for alternatives. That pushed manufacturers toward engines that could balance performance, efficiency, and emissions. And this is where the V8 started facing its biggest problem. It was becoming harder to make it efficient. So automakers started getting creative. They didn't always have to choose between power and efficiency. Cylinder deactivation was one answer. Under light loads, some V8s could shut down cylinders and save fuel. Then came hybrid technology, adding electric motors to help the engine when extra power was needed. That gave engineers another way to keep performance without relying entirely on engine displacement. But technology couldn't completely erase the advantages of a smaller engine. Smaller engines were lighter, easier to package, and usually easier to make efficient. And that's why the modern car market started moving toward smaller turbocharged engines. But the V8 never completely went away. It found a new home in the vehicles where its strength still mattered. For trucks, muscle cars, and high-performance vehicles, the V8 still offers something special. So is the V8 really disappearing? Maybe. But as long as people still care about the way a car feels, sounds, and drives, the V8 isn't finished yet.